I was just waiting. I love the music so much there. I just wanted to let it roll on for a few seconds longer. But welcome back to Serving Up Success with a Splash, where today we're going to mix strategy with a nice cold beer. I'm Nawtej Dosanjh, Dr. Nawtej Dosanjh, and I've been given the title, and I like it, the Strategy Doctor. I'm a little bit sad about two things this week, but I'm really happy about one thing. The thing I'm happy about is that Bruce is here. Bruce Cramer, aka the Corporate Cockroach, is here. But Bruce, I'm sad about a couple of things. Do you know what they are?
Well, I can guess. One of them is we're missing someone.
We're missing Angie. Angie is on vacation, having a great time, and she had the good sense to not invite me. She had the good sense to not invite me. And Bruce, did she invite you? Did she also have the good sense not to invite you?
Yeah, and that's probably because the last time the three of us were together, we almost fell off a boat. So that might have something to do with it.
So wherever you are, Angie, hope you're having fun, and we can't wait to see you next week. But there is another thing I'm sad about this week. I would love to be joining you in a nice cold beer, Bruce. But this week I'm not able to have alcohol. I'm not going to bore everybody with why I can't. But just this week, I'm not going to be able to have some alcohol. But Bruce, tell me how you're doing. What's happening with you?
Oh my God, I'm doing very well. As you can tell, I've been sipping. Now, this glass wasn't full. This is a huge mug. So this is I've got a little bit of Stella, bottle of Stella in there, brewed out of Belgium. It's actually brewed in the USA, but of course under close supervision from the brewmasters out of Belgium. But nonetheless, you know, I got to tell you, I have no idea where this episode's going to go because we are talking about something that's absolutely life changing. For you personally, for our audience members, whether you're in business, you're a leader, your children, this thing called the growth mindset is a real game changer. So I'm looking forward to that, sipping and shifting my mindset during this show.
Okay, well, let's get straight into it, Bruce. Before I sort of make some comments, when we talk about mindset, what does it mean for you?
And so I had to give this some thought because as our audience knows, we really don't ever have a script. However, we kind of know the topic. And so each of us on our own kind of prep. And so, we're getting into a rhythm here. So I kind of knew that question might come to me. It's when my internal voice, I'm having a conversation with myself where I'm saying, oh, I don't think I can do that. I can't do that. Or I can do that. To
Yeah.
me, that epitomizes what's meant by what is my mindset at the time I'm having those thoughts.
So, am I right in saying it's almost like what you can and can't do in what your mind is telling you what you can and can't do? Is that a fair summation?
Yes, yes.
Let's
And
develop that a little bit. Let's develop that a little bit. Normally we don't. This is a show about having impact, relatability. So we normally don't bring up, who the people are that wrote about this. But I've got to tell you, this week I've got to. Hats off to psychologist Carol Dweck, who we're going to talk about during this episode, and she defined two main types of mindset: a fixed mindset, where people believe that their abilities and their intellect and what they can achieve is static. It's defined already. There's very little they can do about it. And those with what we call a growth mindset. Bruce, you are firmly in the growth mindset category, where you believe that things can happen with effort, with learning, with trial and error, with mistake, with, I don't know, working through criticism. We're going to develop this a long way. But I want to give you very personal example of where a growth mindset happened to me about 15 years ago. I was never a very good swimmer, and I definitely could not do breaststroke. I could do a really bad front crawl, okay, where I would come up for breath, but have to stop swimming to come up for breath. Anyway, my daughter, my then, I don't know how old she was, she must have been 10, taught me how to breaststroke on holiday in 25 minutes. And since then, I'm still not a great swimmer, but I just suspended, for the sake of my daughter, I suspended my fixed mindset, got on with it, and I can do breaststroke. I'm still a really bad swimmer, but I can do breaststroke. I can maybe do a length breaststroke. So, um, and that's really the sort of difference between a fixed mindset. I can't swim. I was never good at swimming. Oh, and suddenly I changed my tune, and I could swim. I'm wondering, Bruce, you've got a plethora of examples which you've talked about on previous shows. Give us one of your sort of fixed mindset and growth mindset examples from your past.
Oh, good God. There's many. They're usually short-lived because as people that have tuned in, and by the way, thank you for always tuning in. Um, they know by now I refer to myself as the slow kid. Well, that's not a joke. By default, I've had to have the growth mindset because I am the slow kid. So it takes
Just total
effort for
rubbish. That's total rubbish, but okay, carry on. All
yeah,
right, okay.
but
You're the slow kid.
I
Yeah.
think of there's many moments, but when you brought up swimming, a few years ago, I now live on an island, and so I always like to be out on the water. But typically, until I moved here, someone else was the captain of the boat.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I moved here, uh, it became apparent, well, you're going to have to learn to drive your boat. And I lease a boat here on the island. And so I'll never forget, I'm thinking, it's been decades since I've been behind the wheel because, as I said, typically somebody else was commandeering the boat. Well, I
Mm.
get in it. I'm thinking, how bad can this be? I'm in the Gulf of America. I'm not really going to run into anybody. Well, we decided to go have lunch at this restaurant that's well known called Cabbage Keys. But nonetheless, I'm driving in to the docks and it hit, oh shit, I can't do this. I mean, there's beautiful yachts parked, and I'm coming in on my leased pontoon at that moment in time. And I'm like, I can't, I can't. And realizing, one of the things you could say to yourself, what, not yet. Well, the dock master saw me coming in, and I'm trying to indicate to him, I don't think I can do this. So he kind of waved me off and took me around the back. And he literally looked at me, oh, yes, you can. And I was able to get into the dock and I was just fine. I didn't hit anyone. But at that moment, man, there was a big can't. But I realized I had no choice. We can either pull back and I'm not going to eat, or I'm going to take advantage of this dock master that's willing to say, you can't yet, but with a little help, you can. And he got me in just fine.
I love the word yet, the power of yet. I really do love that word. Bruce, you mentioned it early on. We don't we don't have scripts. We rehearse. We see each other 15, 20 minutes before the show, and we talk about our week and so forth. But this week I have made a few notes because there are so many powerful examples of the growth mindset. that I've written down a few examples, and I want to share them as we go through the show to illustrate what a growth mindset is. One particular one, I think I've mentioned this to you before. It's about I've got it in front of me. A teacher divided a class into two groups, and to make a ceramic plate. And one group was told, I'm reading it, I want to make sure I got it. One group was told that they graded solely on the quantity of pots they produce, the number of pots. The
Oh, I
other
love this.
group, the other group, yeah, I have told you this one before. The other group
Yes.
was graded on the quantity, sorry, the quality of pots. Okay, so you got two groups of students. They're going to be graded differently. One on the quantity, one on the quality. The students that were graded on the quantity, they just went for it. They made mistakes. They learned from their mistakes. They got better. The pots got better. Initially, they were just throwing things together, and the pots but they produced a lot of pots, and they were graded highly. The group, the group that was graded just on the quality of pots, they didn't produce even one pot. They were so concerned. They had paralysis analysis. They were so concerned on the quality and the perfection of the pot, they just couldn't do it. And that is a real example about how with setting the context, you can really limit people, or you can make them grow. You can assist them in their growth.
Oh, I am. When we come back from break, I've got a real example that I experienced working with small business owners today
Yeah.
that I can
Okay.
share that fits that like a glove.
Okay. Well, Jesse, why don't you take us to break, because I can't hear. Welcome back, everybody. Before we went to break, Bruce Cramer, my co-host on Serving Up Success with a Splash, was just about to give us an example. But before you go there, Bruce, let's break it down. Let me give you some sort of platform. Fixed mindset says, if I fail, I'm a failure. Growth mindset says, go for it, Bruce.
If I fail, I have just learned something potentially new.
That's it. That's one of the basic differences. We'll come back to more differences
Yeah.
during the show. But Bruce, I can't wait to hear this example.
Well, so often, especially with small businesses that are kind of in the startup mode, one of the things that a lot of times everybody's thinking about the business model, their strategy, this, that, and the other. And a big
Yeah.
part of starting up is prospecting. The need to
Hmm.
go out, you have to define who's your ideal client. That's first and foremost. But then you got to get out and meet these people. You have to talk. Now you'll leverage relationships, people that you know, et cetera. But at some point, you're going to talk to somebody that doesn't know you from Adam, and you've got to make that prospecting. Well, what I see happens all the time is most, and I would say 80% of people in the startup mode that we have these kind of conversations, they get a little spooked, and it's very awkward, and they spend forever crafting what that elevator speech, that hook, that key message, that they work on it. Oh my God, they spend weeks trying to develop the perfect message that they can use to introduce themselves and the organization and the services they offer, and they won't prospect. When we sit and chat, you always say at a minimum, make 5 calls a day to somebody you don't know that would qualify potentially as well, they wait forever because the message isn't quite baked enough. They don't have this, that, or the other. And just like the pots, you want to get out there and practice. You may message and realize it landed like a thud. That's okay. What did you learn from that? You want to keep recycling that message, keep having the conversations until you get to the point that, ooh, the last few conversations, boom, there was a hook. And that's how you will perfect your messaging in terms of your marketing and prospecting. It's by doing, not waiting until it's perfect.
I think a lot of people, I can certainly relate to that, and I think a lot of people can relate to that because most of us find that sort of thing so difficult, and we find reasons not to do it. We try and make ourselves perfect, and we spend so much time on that. I want to turn, Bruce, and I'm going to come up with an example here again from Carol Dweck. I want to turn to the importance of messaging. We alluded to in the first segment, messaging and how you can influence others. I'm not talking about growth mindset or a fixed mindset just in yourself. How you can, I want to even use the word manipulate, but influence others. You can influence them positively and you can manipulate them negatively. And here's the study that I want to talk about, which illustrates that. Again, Carol Dweck, 350 students, goes back all the way to 1978. They had 12 problems to solve, which progressively got harder. She told one group of students that they were they had high intellect and they could succeed and so forth. Another group believed that what they could achieve was fixed. Their intellect was fixed. So one group had a growth mindset, and one group had a fixed mindset. And unbelievably, those with the growth mindset, not necessarily with the higher intellect, who believed, but they believed that their intellect could grow, their intelligence could grow, persisted. They worked hard. They overcame obstacles. They made mistakes, learned from mistakes, and performed better than the other group. So it's one thing to say that individuals have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset, but the power of this is that you can influence people positively. And if you're not a great person, you can influence people negatively. But there's a massive power in this in the corporate world. And I'm setting this up because I want to hear, and you don't know I'm going to ask you this question, but I want to hear about how in your corporate experience where you found the influence of others impacted people positively and negatively. I really want to hear that.
Well, and that's actually it's a great question and a loaded question. And God, how am I going to answer this? So let me take off on what you said. If you're blessed enough to have more than one or two team members with that growth mindset, they see the challenge, the unknown, as a path to learn, grow, and succeed differently than they have in the past. And so, you want that mindset because if you can get a group of people to have no fear to share their half baked ideas, you want that. Um, where you run into a problem if you have people, with a fixed mindset, people are like, oh shit, I'm not going to say that because I'll look like an idiot. That ain't going to cut it. Where
Bruce,
somebody with a
I'm gonna just cut in there. I'm gonna cut in there because I want to I want to make you answer this question right now. Give me examples of where, I know you don't want to because it's hard, but give me an example where people in positions of authority influenced people negatively and it showed in the results. Give me that sort of example. No, obviously, don't mention names, but you've had a long corporate career and you will have come across this. I am absolutely certain.
Oh my God. I'm going to use one of the organizations that I actually co-founded. Um, One of my partners has a very fixed mindset. Um, and of course, I'm under the growth mindset. And we worked very closely, great person. However, we ended up with many consecutive losses because from his mindset, and he was more of the expert than I was, is that he had a fixed way of doing things. And even when it didn't work, it was all the circumstances around what we did that was the cause. Not that maybe there was an opportunity for growth here for us to think differently and adapt and change the way we were going about. Nope, it's worked for me in the past, whatever. And we've lost millions of dollars. And the lesson for me is that, and this was a business partner, somebody that I respect, great person, blah, 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 is that never again will I enter into a business where I really am stuck with somebody that believes there's a level of know-how and abilities that you achieve, and that that's it. I can't I because in this day and age everything changes and everything will continue to change at a more rapid rate. So if you come in
Bruce.
saying, I know, versus I'm willing to learn, at some point the business is going to get shortchanged. And that's exactly what happened to me. But not after we took a bath.
Mm. Well, Bruce, I really appreciate you sharing that. I'll put you on the spot there, but you've had such a lot of experience. I just wanted to hear a raw example. And look, I've given examples from studies, but I've talked about school children or school children. But this applies in the corporate world as well. There's an example from a study in 2010 where um, exactly what you're saying on a larger scale, Fortune 500 company, where those companies with a prevalent growth mindset with their employees were more collaborative, they were inspiring, showed greater potential for progression. Whereas those companies with a fixed mindset, guess what? Stagnation, turnover, staff turnover, toxic cultures. So this is a big thing. We're not just talking about individuals, right, Bruce? We're talking
You
about what
got
can
it.
influence large numbers of people. This is a big thing.
And again, we're getting flagged. I do want to piggyback on that because I am going to
Yeah,
give kudos to an organization that I've continued to give kudos that actually raised me
yeah.
when we come back.
Hey, Bruce, I just wonder before you get into your example, do you think Angie's watching?
I
Do
highly
you think,
doubt
do you
it.
think
I'm sure,
Angie
like,
is not in the bar and she's watching us instead?
well, you never know. But we do get a lot, the amount of reruns, people watching after the live feed is awesome. So, by the way, we appreciate that of everyone. So I'm kind of suspecting that that's what she will do. She'll check in
I'm
on
going to be
us.
disappointed. I'm going to be disappointed if she's not
She'll,
watching us. I'm going to be
she'll,
so disappointed if she's in the bar with her friends. I'm going to be very sad. So, Angie, if you're watching the rerun, if you're watching this the rerun, I'm just really sad that you didn't watch the live show. Bruce, sorry, I had to cut in there. But anyway,
well, no, I guarantee you she's going to check us out just to make sure we didn't do anything to embarrass her
no,
as as
well,
as
fat
one of
chance
our
of that.
partners. Um, Natesh, I wanted to back the bus up for a little bit because one of the things,
Yeah.
In most of the episodes, I've had to learn things the hard way. And trust me, I've had more than my fair share of failures. And the example I used wasn't all that old of this recent. So I'm still learning like everyone else. Um, however, I've been very fortunate because even growing up as a kid, we talk about the fixed mindset where you think,
Yeah,
you know what, this is the best it's going to get in terms of my intellect and my ability. And then there's the growth mindset that says there are no limits. My intellect will continue to grow my abilities, blah,
yeah,
blah, 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 blah. Well, without getting into any of the academic side or lesson side of all of this, even as a little kid, my parents always said to me, Bruce, if you put your mind to it, you can do whatever you want. You can be whoever you want. You can accomplish whatever you want. You live in the greatest country in this world. And no offense, I know Natej's in the UK, but they're just saying the opportunities are in overabundance. The only limiting factor is going to be you. Now, this is me. Like I'm 5 years old. I mean, six. And they were just so nurturing in that
yeah,
regard. Well,
yeah,
then I finally get, for those that don't know me, I was a bit of an entertainer, did a little bit of touring and that sort of thing. However, that was all in a very like tri-state area. Uh, but when I got my first real job, I started at this organization called Granger. And I think when I started, we were like at 700 million. Today, I'm not sure. I think they're somewhere around 13 billion, whatever. Very successful distribution organization. But the reason for that is I walked into a culture that was just thick with the growth mindset. Um, and, I remember, like I said, I started out cleaning toilets. And, and they were so nurturing, and everybody, like if I screwed up, and there were many, and I could tell stories galore. Like once on a single project, I lost $3 million, literally within a month or two. And I was sweating it out because, failure. And what did my senior executive boss say to me? Well, think of it this way, Bruce. That was a $3 million investment in your education. What did you learn from that? Not, you idiot, you're fired. But that was the mindset of the organization, and it is today. And you can go check
yeah,
out Granger. They're, like I always tell everybody on this show, they're always the
yeah.
best place to work for, the highest ethical organization out there in terms of ethics. But they had a growth mindset. 700 million, late 70s to billions. They're still growing, doing great things, helping their communities, but they had that growth mindset. And so it makes all the difference in the world about failure is a gift, an opportunity to get better
Yeah.
and challenge yourself, stretch yourself. You want a certain level of failure to really learn and grow and truly succeed at levels unimaginable.
So, a couple of quick fire questions for you then, Bruce. We've talked about challenging yourself and what that means as a growth mindset and what it means as a fixed mindset. Success of others. What would somebody with before I carry on, um, we have um, a message from Angie saying she's in the bar with her friends. She must be listening because if the message has come through, cheers, Angie. Thank you for listening, along with everybody else. We really appreciate that. That's lovely. Um, Success of others as a topic. Somebody with a growth mindset and somebody with a fixed mindset. How does
Easy.
somebody tell me?
If you have a fixed mindset and you're watching somebody that's just on fire, just killing it,
Yeah,
jealousy, envy, you're looking at that person, God, that bastard, you know, or, you know, how the hell does she do this? And instead of looking at going, what the hell are they doing? What, how did she do that? I got to talk to her. I'm inspired. So people that have a growth mindset are inspired by people that are truly successful and will to some degree latch onto them to learn. Where if you're fixed, you avoid them because it's like, oh, I can't. There's no way I can compare to that.
Okay. I think that's a great answer. What about you've talked about effort already. Okay, criticism. Criticism. So fixed mindset, growth mindset.
Oh, oh, ooh, this is where I early in my career, especially, not that I still don't to this day, if somebody criticizes, let's say, a proposal I put together back in my early days, or just, you know, didn't agree with me, I would get pretty defensive. I would go
Yeah.
into the mode of trying to challenge and prove why my proposal is good or why I'm right. Big mistake. When that, you know, what I've learned now is if I have the growth mindset and make
Yeah.
sure I got that cap on, if I'm getting that feedback, there might be a good reason. Somebody might be pushing back on me because there's something that I don't know that I need to learn, whatever. So now instead of trying to prove my point or why I'm right or why this is good, I shut up and listen and and try to learn how I can make it better. Because if somebody's pushing back on me, chances are I'm too focused on my ego and I'm not focused on what's best for what it is we're doing collectively.
One thing just to say there, Bruce. I don't believe you ever shut up. Absolutely not. You do not ever shut up. I mean, I have to have security outside your door to make sure that you we keep you in the guardrails of time. Okay, two questions for you, and which I'm going to answer to, but I'm going to
Well,
ask you.
yeah, at
No,
some point you
no,
got to answer.
I will. So, but I'm putting the question. So,
Okay.
here's the first question. Any part of you that has a fixed mindset?
You know, I to this day, I have to guard whenever I'm exposed to just a shitload of detail, or
Yeah,
I
me too.
realize I need to do a much deeper dive.
Yeah,
Um, I'm usually like, oh, I can't handle this. I'm not good at this. I
yeah,
need another set of eyes. Instead
mm,
of saying, I need to get good at this. I need to, you know, I might not be good at it yet, go back to our yet, but I can get
yeah,
better. And I've had to do that. In that $3 million example I gave, it was my
yeah,
lack of attention to detail that blew that wad of cash. And so it was a valuable lesson that, you know, instead of telling myself, I just can't do this, I'm not good at it
yeah.
yet.
But yeah. So I mean, that's very honest of you. The detail and one area where you've progressed most in terms of the growth mindset. I think you've already
Oh,
mentioned.
I love a challenge. I think I've said this on another show. I've gotten to the point, and I did this again because I was nurtured by many great mentors, my supervisors, coaches, etc. I
Yeah,
love it when I'm faced with a challenge that I have no clue when it's first expressed to me as to what the hell to do. I thrive on it now because I now know, you know, I live a very blessed life. I now know if I do that, I'm going to get so much better. I'm going to learn so much. I'm going to further develop my abilities and my intellect. So I look for those opportunities now.
so my thing is, I think that if there's stuff that I haven't been good at, I still will need a bit of self-cajoling to do them. So, for example, I don't think I'm very good at marketing. I was about to say I know I'm not very good at marketing, but I thought I'd change the language slightly. And so I'm still overcoming that. Um, and one area that I've probably progressed in. Go on, Bruce. You want to
Well,
say
I was
something?
going to ask you, well, what have you progressed in?
So I think the area that I've progressed in, I've learned to curtail being sensitive to criticism. I've learned to curtail it. Occasionally it'll still come out. Depends which button is pressed. But mostly I'm quite good at taking feedback. Actually, a better way to say is I'm good at taking feedback. Sometimes if it's critical and it's not really feedback, it's criticism, then I can probably get a little bit sensitive. Whereas really what I should be doing is learning from it. Um, so I like to think that I've got a growth mindset, but it's it's mixed, right? It's not, you've got a tremendous growth mindset, but there's parts of your character, there's parts of my character, that needs work. And I think it's just important to acknowledge that. In fact, acknowledging that is part of having a growth mindset, right?
Right. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe you can answer this when we come back from the break. Because
Oh, beautiful
even
setup. I
though
love that.
even though you've been in academia for
Yeah.
you work with corporations and
Yeah.
and the C-suite executives, etc.
Yeah.
Who has the greater growth mindset? Academia or corporate America or
Do you know,
corporations?
I am so glad there's a break coming up now, because I could suddenly there's every possibility that I'm going to be taken ill in the break. I won't be able to answer that question. Jesse, take the music away. Welcome back, everybody. I just phoned my doctor there during the break, and I said, "Doc, listen, I've got a really tough situation. I've got to answer a difficult question. Can you just give me an illness that I can feign?" And you know what he said, Bruce? You know what he said? He said, "That's not a growth mindset. Get back on the podcast and answer the question that Bruce has put." Okay. So
Yeah,
so
I'm
my doctor was not supporting this. So my answer is truthful answer, honest answer. I don't think there's I don't think there's a difference. I really don't. I think a growth mindset comes from individuals. I don't think their sector matters. I don't think their background matters. I think it's something that's um, it's contagious. If you happen to be around growth mindset people, it's going to make you a growth. There's a greater chance, greater propensity that it's going to make you more growth mindset. If you happen to be around people who have a fixed mindset, you're going to have to work harder. Yeah, work harder. What's wrong with working harder? What's wrong with having obstacles and learning from obstacles? Yeah, you're going to have to work harder. But the truth is, I made a bit of fun about it, but I don't believe there's a difference between academia and corporate America in terms of who has cornered the market in the growth mindset and who's on the naughty step with the fixed mindset.
do you think that's the same between the UK and in the US?
Oh my God, you're nasty. You're nasty. Let me call my doctor, see if he'll give me a prognosis for that one. No, I think culturally there is, yes. I think there is, yes. Yes.
So who's
On
more fixed
average. On
and
ev
who's
on
more fixed
average.
and who's more growth?
I think you know the answer to that. Um, so
I hope
so
I do.
I would say on average, um, American culture is more go-getting and can do, whereas we can have we can sometimes have a culture of thinking through the problems more, and maybe being self-limiting. I don't think you can generalize. I don't think you can
Yeah.
stereotype, but on average, there is some truth in that, and there's some research that's been done a long time ago, and I've forgotten the name of the guy who did it, where that would be true. Nasty question, Mr. Cramer. Nasty, very nasty,
Oh,
very
oh,
nasty.
only Dr. D would have the to answer that. And I appreciate that. That's why we love you. Just real
So
quick shout out to Jesse. You know how we were talking earlier about, and by the way, shout out to Jesse who produces us, engineers this show. Thank you, thank you, thank you. She, yeah, wonderful, just
adorable,
wonderful.
adorable,
Uh,
lovely person.
and uh, and she put in the comments, I hate this when she does this to me because then I get thrown off. She goes, "You embarrass Angie every week."
I've got to say, yeah, but Bruce, that wasn't a joke. That bit was. We do a lot of jokes on this show. That wasn't a joke, though. That bit's real. But Bruce, let's change tack because I want to get
Okay.
a few more things. So let's talk about how you can cultivate a growth mindset in difficult circumstances. Let's say you're surrounded by people with a fixed mindset. How can we cultivate that? It's a tough one. If you're in an unfortunate situation and you've got to
I
make you've got to pay the bills. There's kids running around. You're working two jobs. How do you get a growth mindset?
You so again, you're in this group that has fixed, and you have the I think you have to just demo it. I think you have to demonstrate it. Sometimes just simply calling it out, it
Mm,
is going to do no one any good. If you're in that group, you welcome the chance for somebody to say something back to you, and you say, "Oh man, that's a great You know what? Thank you." Because of that, I have an opportunity to get better. Um, if you're hearing, I can't, you could just simply look at them and say, well, not yet, anyways, right? So demonstrate, some of the things we discussed. When there's failure in and amongst that group, you have an opportunity to say, well, what did we learn from that?
Would you
So
accept that it's
demonstrate that.
Would you accept that though? Would you accept that it's going to be tough for many people, many of our listeners who are in tough situations, financially or at work, or would you accept that it's going to be tough for some people? What can we say? What can we say to them?
Um, you with
It's
all
a
the
tough one, right?
questions.
Yeah, it's a no, but it's a tough one, and
It
it
it is,
has our
but
attention.
there's no doubt it's tough, and we've all been there. We've been surrounded. It could be somebody that's, you know, um, high in the organ, to your point, in an authoritative position that has that fixed mindset. All I can say is you got to look yourself in the mirror. I think you got to stay true, and you yourself move from a fixed mindset to a growth. And if you just work on that, there's a couple of things. One, as I just pointed out, you might pull a few people along because they'll pick up on the behaviors you're actually demonstrating, and they're going to feel a little bit about, oh, that feels kind of good. That actually feels
So
good.
what you're saying, so lean into challenges, lean into
Yes,
challenges. Yeah. Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. What
Absolutely.
else? What else? Feedback?
What would you say? I'm turning the
What I'd
tables
say,
on you.
so I'd say what you'd said, but also I'd say, what are the alternatives? What are the alternatives? Okay, tough spot. Gone through the examples, but what's the alternative to a growth mindset? It's perpetual. I don't want to use the word misery. It's a perpetual
Mediocrity.
limiting yourself,
Yeah.
keeping yourself down, kidding yourself that you don't have the ability to do more, wronging yourself, fooling yourself. Um, so if you're in a tough spot, it's, I understand, we understand, but what's the alternative to a growth mindset?
Yeah.
The only alternative is a negative, fixed mindset, which is
Yeah.
going to keep you into that, in that. There's no possibility of escaping that.
Correct. And
That's what I
that's
would
just,
say.
yeah. Well said, because you can always escape. You can always move on. That may take a little bit of effort, and you have to take a lot of things into consideration, but get out of there if at all possible. The other thing for anybody hearing this, when you're interviewing candidates, no matter what your position, if you're interviewing somebody to come on to the team, there's plenty of things we gave today to look in their actual work history. Did they demonstrate a positive mindset? Or in their comments or in their examples, did it reek of a fixed mindset?
Thanks, Bruce. Okay, Bruce, look, usual thing. We one more thing, one final thing from you, one key learning thing, and a message to our listeners before we go. So, a couple of things
Well,
from
I'll
you.
give one and then you give one.
Of
mine
course.
is mine is we were born with endless potential. Potential is not limited. Um, and you can see it in all walks of life, whether it's at, professional sports, you know, now there are limitations we have physically and stuff, but if you pick and choose where your passion is and truly have a passion, you can grow and learn and be wildly successful. It's only you that will hold yourself back. And that's typically the fixed mindset.
I think that's a
Natesh?
great answer, Bruce. So I want to say this first of all. Thank you to. I am blown away. We are blown away with how many people are listening to this show, and it just keeps getting better week after week. I'll be honest with you. I have no idea why. I think it's probably Angie, but maybe Bruce. But I've no idea why. But
That's
really,
that's a
really,
good theory.
genuinely grateful. Genuinely grateful. And I would say the same. I'm going to say the same as Bruce. I'm going to say it slightly differently. You don't have any limits. The only limits being placed on yourself are by you. You can choose not to have those limits. You can choose to fill your brain with different thoughts. And whatever situation you're in, there's a way to make it better, and that's by having a growth mindset. That's what I'd say, Bruce.
Excellent. Take us home.
Thanks, Angie. Thanks, Bruce. Angie, thank you for listening. Even though you're in a bar, really appreciate that. No need, but really appreciate that. And Jesse, thank you also for making this a fun hour as you produce the show with a growth mindset and your lovely messages throughout the show. But from us this week, it's goodbye, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, everyone.